Okay, so let's get going. Again, my name is Ken DeCessa with Revelwood, and we are an Adaptive Insights business partner. A few quick notes as we get going. We will be finished in 45 minutes, so I'm not going to run over on you. And during that time, as much as I love the melodic sounds of dogs barking and lawnmowers and all the other things that we have now with people working from home, it's hard enough to concentrate managing my own distractions. So for that reason, everyone's going to be on mute today. If you do have a question, there's a Q&A section on your screen. Go ahead and type it in, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. But certainly, if we don't get to all of them, because we are going to be moving very fast, we'll certainly get you an answer afterwards. I know that some of you are on this call just out of curiosity or maybe general education. Some of you might be here because you have an initiative in the area of FP&A automation. Either way, we certainly would appreciate you taking just 15 minutes with us over the next week or so for a quick chat on what your thoughts were around this. So in the next day or so, you'll hear from myself or one of my colleagues. We'll reach out to you with like a 15-minute meeting invite or something like that, and hope that you choose to just spend those few minutes with us. One final thing, it's important, I want to mention that this demo is really meant to give you a glimpse into the Adaptive Insights solution and how it can help you better manage FP&A. But there's lots of capabilities and things that in 45 minutes it's impossible for us to discuss. So just keep that in mind. There's lots more to see and talk about than what you're going to see today. I only have a few quick slides for you. First is a safe harbor statement. Adaptive Insights is owned by Workday. I'd imagine maybe many of you know that. Workday is a publicly held company. So just understand that what I'm going to be showing you today are all features of the system now as it exists. I don't think I'm going to mention anything from a roadmap perspective, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if I do happen to mention that it's something on the roadmap, please don't make decisions based on that because roadmaps do change. You may not know this, but Adaptive Insights has over 5,200 customers right now. One of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing FP&A solution in the market space, just tremendous growth. And they're very highly rated. If you follow Gartner or Forrester or any of those rating type agencies, they're extremely highly rated among all the solutions. In Gartner, everyone's familiar probably with the upper right-hand quadrant of their magic quadrant, which is the place you want to be. Well, Adaptive Insights is way up there in the upper right. You know, an interesting stat that came out, the average user satisfaction for software is 42%. Workday commissioned a study, actually I think it was more than one study, two studies, to look at their customer satisfaction, both Workday as a HCM and general ledger solution, but also Adaptive Insights. And Adaptive Insights had a 97% customer satisfaction rating. I think that's just a real testament to how much they focus on customer satisfaction. And quite frankly, the growth of the company really tells all when it comes to the value the solution is bringing to our customers. They've got customers in just about every marketplace across the world. You may recognize a lot of these names, some you may not, but just, you know, the thing about Adaptive Insights is it's broadly adopted by any industry. When you're building out models, doing things in Adaptive Insights, it can pretty much model with it what any industry needs. So today's reality is, as a lot of you may be experiencing right now, is that we all live in this world, or many of us might be living in this Excel-based world of static planning. Static maybe because we're using Excel, or static maybe because we're not really reaching out to many different parts of the organization. We might be very finance focused right now, and finance doing everything and really not engaging the end users as much as they'd like to. But when we look at a true FP&A solution and how it should be applied, we look at it as finance as the orchestrator, and where you're really needing to bring in those people, get buy-in from them, have them participate in the process, because it brings a lot of value and it brings a lot of accountability to the situation as well. And if you think about a really, I'll call it best practice planning environment, planning process in an organization, it's really one that's collaborative across all those business lines. It's one that's comprehensive, takes into account a lot of different types of models, things like personnel and revenue and CapEx, et cetera, all your operational metrics and KPIs. And it's continuous. It's one that goes on some sort of regular cadence, whether for you it's monthly, maybe weekly, or maybe quarterly, but some cadence that helps you manage the business and make decisions ahead of time. You know, let's not always be looking in the rearview mirror. Let's be looking forward all the time. And in order to sort of meet this criteria, you really need a support solution like Adaptive Insights that's, one, easy to use, because if it's not easy to use, we know that the business people are not going to use it. They're not going to participate. At the same time, it's got to be powerful. Let's face it, it needs to support all the data that you as an organization require. It needs to support the response times that you require. It needs to be able to process that and be very powerful in nature. And it needs to be fast. People need to be able to go in. If you're going to do it often, which is most effective for your business, you've got to be able to do things quickly. It can't be cumbersome to do. And that kind of goes back with easy. It's got to be fast so you can iterate, so you can get the data you need to make important decisions. And I certainly realize that where you are today as a company and across everyone on this webinar today is very different from where you want to be in the future. But the path to getting there is very different for people, very different by company. So whatever your vision is for your FP&A organization, we feel and we have found that Adaptive Insights is really well suited to starting small and growing, or starting a little bit bigger and then really getting expansive. All right, so everyone's anxious, so let's move on to our demo today. So you can log into the Adaptive Insights system just by going to adaptiveplanning.com. Okay, you would click login over here and you would enter your user credentials. And when you do, you get this screen. This is the welcome screen. Now this welcome screen, this can be customized to whatever you want on it. There's different boxes you can do. You can link to different pages, etc. But the thing that you're going to use the most is this hamburger menu right up here. This contains all the different options or places to go within Adaptive Insights. I'm going to run through these real quick, and I'm going to summarize some of them for you, and then some of them I'm going to be clicking into today. So Sheets. Sheets is simply where you do your planning. You'll have a number of sheets to plan things like expense accounts or do your staff planning, maybe revenue planning. It's a real important part of the Adaptive Insights systems, obviously Sheets. Assumptions. Assumptions is where you define global parameters for things like the sheets. For example, you may define a driver that's like an increase in salaries for the year, a global assumption for training dollars, maybe something like that. It's where you just put all that information so you don't have to keep changing it. It's located in one place and then it applies throughout the system. Reports, pretty self-explanatory. We build these reports, more typical what I'll call column and row sort of reports, but I'm going to show you them a little bit. Dashboards, our discovery section, is where you have those that graphical representation of your data. We're going to go into that as well. Consolidation is a true accounting consolidation engine that Adaptive has. So if you want to, if you want to do intercompany eliminations, those sorts of things, you can do it here. Process and workflow. So if you want to define a workflow for a user to follow to complete their budget, to complete their forecast, you would do it here. Formulas, creation of formulas, modeling. Modeling is like the back end of Adaptive Insights. And the great thing about the back end of Insights is it's really easy. There is no coding. There is no scripting. There's nothing like that. What you see here is the back end. And everything is point and click, where you go into something. I want to create a new version, for example. You might want to do that. Or you need to do something with your levels or your attributes. And all those things, that's where you're going to go. You're going to go there to this modeling section. And then, of course, integration down here is how we get data in and out of the system. What you're going to see today, keep in mind that what we've done here in our demonstration is we've already loaded in actuals. So what's going to happen is on some regular basis, you're going to load in your actuals from your general ledger system. You may be loading actuals or data from your CRM system or for some other operational type of system. And that's happening on some regular cadence, right? For some people, it's weekly. For some people, it's monthly. For some people, it's daily, right? That cadence is up to you. But in today's demo, just keep in mind that that data has been loaded in here, and so we didn't have to go through the process. But in integration, there's a number of different ways you can do it. And Adaptive Insights has been integrated with hundreds, 200, 250, I don't know the exact number, but I know it's over 200 different types of systems. So it's very open in that regard. So the first thing I want to go into is our discovery or our dashboards. Okay, so here is where you get this very graphical representation of things like your financial data and KPIs. I want to point out that there's some foundational elements of Adaptive Insights. These are things that you tend throughout the system. Your time strata is one of those things. And again, you'll define your time strata individually. This is just how we have it set up here by month. Your levels, this is your company structure. Again, this is the way for purposes of demonstration we've set it up, but certainly you're going to be able to set it up any way that you need in the way that best represents your company. Currency, everything you're going to see today is USD, but Adaptive Insights fully supports foreign currency. So those are a few things that you'll see throughout the entire system. So as you begin to take a look at these graphics, you know, this is typical stuff, I guess, when you think of dashboards. You're going to be able to hover over a number and see the actual. You're going to be able to go across different charts on graphs, et cetera. Be able to see what those data points are. There's selectors, so you can drill down at any one individual chart. You can change stuff. So there's various different options. You can download the image. You could actually expand any one image to the size of the screen. Kind of a neat thing if you're trying to get people's attention. So let me just go through some of these just to give you an idea of how they look and feel. I'm just going to click through a few. You'll notice this waterfall chart, which is, if anyone's ever created one in Excel, they're a real pain, and they're pretty easy to do in Adaptive Insights. Let's go maybe sales. So there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of different ways. I think there's about 15 different graphics you can use within Adaptive Insights. And we're actually going to go and build the dashboard so you can see how it's done. But I wanted to show you something right here. You'll notice our visualizations, but we also have a grid of data. And one of the things I see is I've got something red. And of course, red always means bad, right? In this case, we've missed our revenue forecast. So one of the things that Adaptive is really great at doing is drilling into data. So all I have to do is go to this 98.4% and click on it, and I can now begin to drill in and find out why I'm missing that. So I have my two companies defined. I see that company C is 100% of the revenue target, but company A is only 97%. So I might then drill in another level. All revenue happens to be in operations in that company, so I drill in again. I look across here, I can see that's 100%, 100%, 98%, but only 91%. So US obviously is the one that's driving most of this. So I can drill in even again and see that, well, all these look like they pretty much hit that target except for US Sales North. So we now know that US Sales North was the primary driver for the miss in our revenue forecast, and I can go back and I can continue my investigation that way. Another thing, if I go to something like finance top line, the drilling in Adaptive Insights gets even more in depth. Most of you are probably familiar with the concept of how we look at and organize data. Well, one of the beauties of Adaptive Insights is it automatically sets up dimensions and drill paths for you based on the data that's coming into the system. You don't have to predefine drill paths. So if I look at this revenue by quarter, I can just that, and you see I have all these drill paths connected to this revenue. Before, it was the calculation on revenue percentage, so it was only available by the level, but the actual revenue number here is available across all these different dimensions. So I can then say, well, I want to look at this revenue by location. And then I can say, well, here's Great Britain. I want to look at their, I don't know, their customers. And I can see that customer 5 is buying the most. I can then drill into customer 5 by product. So we can drill across all these dimensions pretty freely anywhere in the system. It's a really great part of adaptive insights, and you'll really come to appreciate that when you're having to do investigations, not having to build drill paths, et cetera. And a lot of what I'll call Excel-based solutions, you have to actually build those drill paths for them to exist. Not with adaptive, they just sort of come with it. Another thing I'd like to show you, kind of neat some little things about adaptive insight that I really think work well. Up here, we've got this little projector symbol. Just allows me to go into sort of a PowerPoint mode, if you will, on the whole thing, which is kind of neat. You could actually set these charts to be scheduled to be snapshot out on a schedule to different people. So you could set the frequency for them to go and the people they go to. So that's kind of a neat solution or part of it as well. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is actually like to show you how to build a dashboard. So I'm going to come in here, and I hope everyone's okay. I'm moving pretty fast, so I kind of have to do that on purpose to get through everything. Just to create a dashboard, I just click New, give it a name, let's just call it Ken. And let's start the edit process. So I'm giving my palette, so to speak. So here, all I have to do is pick from any of my visualizations, and let's just do a pie chart here. Then go over to this little file cabinet symbol. And in here, I have all my data. Now, it's not just about the GL accounts. You can see I have all my GL accounts, but it's about other things that we can put in. We can create custom accounts. We can create metrics. So there's all different types of data, not just your chart of account data, right, your GL transactions that are brought in. It's just any data that you want to bring in. But let's, for our pie chart, let's keep it simple. Let's just bring in our operating expenses, okay? Doesn't look like much now. Let's give it a quick name. We'll call it OpEx. And from here, we can just tell it now how we want to break it down. So let's go ahead and break this down by our locations. And there it is. It's done. So that's one. Similarly, I can just maybe take a KPI. Let's pop one of our metrics in there we've been accumulating. So let's say, oh, we can say net income, that's fine. And it's as simple as that. We can do a bar chart maybe. We can bring in revenue. Let's bring in revenue. Yeah. And then we can also then alter these types of things like, let's get rid of our time and instead let's do it by dimension. And there you have it. We just built ourselves that quickly a little dashboard. Now here's even the best part right here is once I hit done, all these things are immediately drillable. So I can go anywhere in here now and drill on that data. And notice how all these drill paths are automatically set up for us. All right, so we're moving right along and we're making good progress. The next thing I'd like to go into is the sheets section of the solution. So we're going to go into just a simple expense sheet. Now remember I mentioned sheets are, generally speaking, sheets are where we enter data. We can look at data, but it's where people actually enter, forecast, budget numbers, etc. So right now we're looking at total company, right? And so we're not entering data at the total company level in this example. So what I need to do is I'm going to come in as a sales manager and I'm going to just show you how I can enter data. It's really as simple as just, and we're in our forecast, by the way, right now. So what you can see here is that I've got my fiscal 2019 actual showing, along with my January and February actual showing. And then everything else is part of my forecast. So what I can do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select where I want to enter the data. Now what I'm doing is I'm dropping down right now through the structure to get to sales north, okay? But just so you know, I don't have to do that every time. I could have just as easily entered north and gone right to it if I knew the name of it and then clicked on it, okay? So now when this comes up, what I'm going to be doing here is entering data into sales north for my forecast. And again, you'll notice our forecast is basically March through December of this year. A couple of other things I want to let you know about the color coding here. The greens are actuals, I already mentioned that. Anything in gray is coming from somewhere else, either a calculation, another sheet, those sorts of things. Anything in blue is obviously a summary number, right? It's being summarized. And then anything in white is where I can actually enter data. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this down to be just a purely monthly forecast that I'm doing right here. So we just have our March through December. I'm going to show you some things how we can plan quarterly and annually as well as we go along. So as I look down the sheet, I also see these little blue bars, these little blue formulas, if you will, or not formulas, but triangles. You'll see them. That just simply means there's a formula. So in this particular cell, if you now look up here, this is the formula for that cell. And adaptive insights formulas are really easy to understand. I mean, you know, yeah, obviously you have to learn a little bit about it, but it's really easy to understand. What this one is telling me is I got an account on the personnel sheet called full-time equivalent, or FTE, and I'm multiplying that by something from my assumptions sheet called telephone per head in the U.S. So basically, I'm taking my full-time equivalents in the U.S. and multiplying them by the assumption of the cost of a telephone per head. Now, these words, personnel, FTE, telephone per head U.S., those are just words that we used in the demo. That verbiage will be as you want it to be. It'll be descriptive to you. You use your language, so those things will be very familiar to you. And then, of course, anything here is just a comment, so you can type in anything you want to further explain what that means, anything after the hashtag here. Anything with a little triangle in the upper right is a comment. So you can see here, there's a comment, all purchase, what does it say? All purchase contract review. But I can put a comment anywhere simply by clicking add a note, enter note here. And that's simply going to just save that. And the great thing about these notes is that those notes follow that intersection of data anywhere in the system. So they'll show up in a report. So you'll always have those notes following you around or following that piece of around. Now, the way it's data is pretty easy, right? If I go into this field, I can simply enter data by clicking across, or I could do something like right-click and say copy forward to the end. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm saving it for a reason. I'll share that with you in a little bit. So that's pretty easy. There's lots of different shortcuts in Adaptive Insights to entering data. I click on this little keyboard down here. There's all kinds, very familiar shortcuts for you, cut and paste type of shortcuts as well. One way you could easily enter data. But let's say that I know what I want to spend for the entire year after January and February, and I don't want to go ahead and calculate these out. I can enter something in my annual total number right here. Let's just say, let's push that to $10,000. And what it's going to do now, it's going to want to break that data back across the remaining months, and I have some ways I can do it. I can create a custom one. I can do it in a number of different ways. I'm just going to do it proportionally now by hitting OK. Essentially, what it's done is it's taken the 10,000, it subtracts out the actuals, and puts the remainder in the open months proportionally based on what was already in there. So we have $500 in each cell. So obviously they should all come out the same after this as well, which they have. So a neat little way to go ahead and be able to just put in an annual number. Now, if I'm looking at this, and I can look at this data in a lot of different ways as well. So if I click up here on this little funnel symbol, right now you should see I'm showing fiscal year 2019, the full year. I'm showing 2020, which is the year I'm in, by month and by the year total. I'm not showing 2021 at all. Now, all I have to do, if I wanted to change that, is I could say, well, you know what, I want to get a comparative. I want to look at what I did month by month in 2019, and I could just hit OK. And when this refreshes, what you're going to see is that I now have all of 2019 data off to my left. So we just added all that. So maybe, let's again take that off. Maybe what I want to do is I want to also be able to plan by quarter within my current year. So I can click that quarter box and hit OK. And now you can see that it added quarters to everything that I have. And if I go down to that account I was working on, I think it was this maintenance account, if I change the quarter to, let's say, 5,000 here, it'll actually do give me the same breakback, but it'll just break back that 5,000 over the months that are in that quarter. So again, lots of different ways to look at and bring in this data and be able to use it, which is really kind of neat to be able to do. Now, one of the greatest things about Adaptive Insights is something called Explore Data or Explore Cell. And what it allows you to do is on any cell is to be able to click on it and explore it and see information about that particular data point. Here I can see that this particular data point is shown on several different sheets. You can see what account is part of, what level I'm currently working in, etc. But why I clicked on it right here is I wanted to show you this view audit trail. Every time I change data, Adaptive Insights is keeping track of that change. So when I click View Audit Trail on that particular cell, what I'm going to be able to see is where I just made those changes. So you can see when we came in, there was no data, and it changed to 500. Then that particular cell went from 500 when I did that annual breakback to $921 and change. So it allows you to see the user and the time and date of the change. Now this is West Coast time because the servers are running on the West Coast, just so everyone knows. So this Explore Cell is something that's totally unique to Adaptive Insights and really is a great, great part of the solution. There's other neat things you can do in here. So for example, I could highlight these cells right here, and I can create a quick chart. And then I have different options to actually change it if I wanted to save it to a dashboard. So just little convenient things that really help out as you're going along your day-to-day business. Now, someone had sent in a question. Earlier on, I had mentioned a thing called, I said that these gray fields, they either are a formula or come from a supporting schedule, right? So someone asked me, what exactly does that mean, the supporting schedule, I guess that term. So if you look at this particular cell, and this is the salary and wages. Now, most people don't just plug in one big number for their salary and wages. Most companies are planning that at some level of detail by position or many by person. So if I go back and do my Explore Cell on that particular number, what I can see is that that is coming from my personnel sheet from a salary total. Okay, that's a formula. And when I further click on that, I can see that that formula and that number, that salary number, is coming from my workforce planning sheet. And if I further click on that, now actually it brings up my actual workforce planning sheet itself. And this is where you could actually do your staff planning. By person, you can keep bonuses, start dates, end dates, you can plan health benefits. How you do it is up to you. This demonstration is simply an example that shows the capabilities of Adaptive Insights. This is not going to be a pre-built thing that you have to adhere to. You're going to be able to build this out and use this any way you see fit. So that's what I meant by a supporting schedule. And you could have as many supporting schedules as you want within Adaptive Insights. Now, I want to, I'm going to be moving on here a second to reporting, but I wanted to get here and show you dashboards and sheets before I go back a step and show you something in dashboards. So in dashboards, you're actually able to combine these visualizations with the actual sheets that we use to enter our data. So here is a quick example of a dashboard with the sheets embedded in them. This is our personnel sheet, the one that you just saw on that screen. This is a part of that, which is called hourly headcount. So it's tracking hourly positions by position and the numbers within each month. And this is just our forecast versus our budget. So what happens if I want to go into March and say I'm gonna have to increase each one of these by threefold maybe. So I'm just gonna go and make some stuff up. 12, maybe make this 6. Right now I'm cutting and pasting this. So I can do this and just copy it all forward. Oops, sorry, I missed that. So I've changed all these numbers. Now, when I hit the save button, you're going to see these visualizations that update. The point here is that all the data, whether it's reports, sheets, dashboards, is all interconnected. And I hope you saw that number change and went up by the amount of that's calculated through those headcount changes. All the data is connected. When you do something in one part of the system, it automatically impacts the other parts of the system, and you see immediate results. There is no script that needs to be written to move data from place to place to place. It's all connected for you. And people love this feature of the system. It's really a great piece. All right, so we're going to get 4:30. I realize that, so I'm going to keep going and keep moving fast. Next thing we're going to do is move into our reporting. Now, reporting is what you might think of as your more traditional type of report. You have your selectors here, right? So I can pretty much select anything I want. I can select time period. You notice my notes, which are being shown down here for the data that's being shown. I have different places I can put them in column as footnotes or show them in line. Of course, all these types of things I can expand and look at. This is all pretty standard. You can see it does a lot of formatting. You can, we love showing things in red and yellow if it's cautious, red if it's bad. Lots of different ways you can do that. And again, the ability to explore data and really drill into data is one of the things that makes Adaptive Insights so great. So if I'm looking at this number, right, and I see something like other T&E, and I say, well, boy, that number's big. What the heck happened? We missed that by 2,800%. I might say, well, first, keeping in mind that I'm looking at my company A, I might first want to drill into this a little bit more by level. Okay, so what it's done now, it's just sort of pivoted the data onto the account, the one account, which was the other T&E account, and now I'm seeing it by level. So you don't have to create separate reports for all these different things. You can just pivot the data in place. Of course, you always have the option to do things like print the reports and snapshot them out to PDF and stuff like that. But by building one report, you can look at the data in so many different ways. It's great. So if I look at this now, I say, well, it's obvious that Sales North missed their number, right? Their working budget was $11,000, but they have $2.6 million. What's going on? So let's go back to our Explore Cell and what we expected the budgeted number to be. And if I look at that, right, that $11,000 of other T&E, I can basically see that all we did, we can look at this Excel formula here, or not this Excel formula, this formula here, and we can see all we did was we took time minus 12, so this time minus 12, so last year, same month, and we multiplied it by an inflation rate. And here we can see the evaluated number. So last year was $11,500. We multiplied it up by 2.8%. That's how we got that $11,000 number. But what the heck happened to this right here? So let's go ahead in and click our Explore Cell. And now, one of the things you can see here is you could actually drill into the transactions that make up that data simply by clicking this right here. And by doing that, the transactions from the GL are brought up, and we can right away see that we had a $2.6 million number entered, and boy, it was only a $2,600 lunch. So obviously someone made a mistake, right? They just typed it in wrong. But now we can go back to accounting to get a correction made, not asking them to research, but us having done it that quickly to figure out what was wrong. All righty, so last thing I want to show you now, moving into or coming out of reports, is actually how to create a report. One of the great things about these reports is they're really easy to do, just kind of like dashboards. So if I go into report, there's different types, don't worry about that now. I'm just going to create what we call a matrix report. And I'm given my canvas. And over here, I just have all the data and the types of data I can drag onto this canvas. So we looked at our accounts before. We knew there was those operating expenses out there, pretty easy to understand. So let's go ahead and drop them on. But let's look also at maybe some metrics. So maybe we can drag gross margin on. We can drag net income on it, right? Pretty easy to do so far. Let's define what we want to go across the top here. So let's go ahead and let's make this a budget versus working budget versus forecast. Let's do that. So we have our different versions. Oh, by the way, Adaptive Insights has unlimited versions. So you can, and it takes about, I don't know, a minute to create a new version, and you can have unlimited. So you might have budget scenario 1, budget scenario 2, forecast scenario 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter. You can create an unlimited number of versions, and that's very useful to most finance people. So let's go ahead and look at our current year working budget. And let's compare that to our forecast. And then let's also go ahead and put a calculation in there. Let's do a variance type of calculation, so simple subtraction. Let's change that. I don't like that name, so I'm going to change that to var dollars. And you notice I could also make that a percent if I wanted to. And then we can put in some filters. So let's pick a time period. Let's look at let's look at 2020. Let's give people the ability to select based on different levels, the different level structure. So I can drag that to here. Whoops, sorry about that. I have to pick company. My level, yep. And then if I want to make it a parameter, in other words, if I wanted to make it a drop-down box where I can pick anyone I want, I just then drag it over here. It's as simple as that. Now I run this report real quick. It's not a fancy report. I didn't do a lot of conditional formatting. I didn't do anything. I simply get my operating expenses where I immediately can look at. I have all my metrics down below that gross margin and net income. And you notice I have my level structure that I can select on if I choose to do it as well. Remember, I can always just type something in if I want to and click on it. I can include my notes anywhere I want. And I immediately got a report. And always remember that this data, you can immediately go in and explore that data. You can drill immediately through any of the dimensions that are available to you. So someone had submitted a question about printing and sending reports to others, and I think I answered that. There's lots of different ways to do that, taking snapshots and creating printable views and exporting them, et cetera. So there are a number of different ways to be able to do that for other people that may not have access. Okay, it is 4:40. I've got 5 minutes, and I'm going to show you the last thing. I think I'm actually right on time. It's called Office Connect. So with all this data that you've seen, we all have these perfect reports, these perfect Excel reports, some things that look like this, things that we show the board, things that we show maybe the executives, right? We've got the colors we want, the logos we want, we've got everything where we want it and how we want it, okay? Well, we can connect Excel, PowerPoint, and Word to the data within Adaptive Insights. And so this report here is one of those reports, and it's called Office Connect. You'll see this is just normal Excel. We have an Office Connect add-in here. When I clicked on link cells, what you'll notice right away is that different things became highlighted. All the data that was just highlighted after I clicked that, I'll do that again, is data that's connected to the Adaptive Insights databases and system. So that's data that's going to be sort of ported in, if you will, from the Adaptive Insights solution. Now I can combine that with just regular old Excel formulas like we see here, right? Anywhere, and I can do all those different types of things. I can do anything I want in Excel and mix and match it, but these are connected. So then the next month rolls around, right? I'm showing here March and the prior, 5 months. All I have to do is go into my workbook properties, say, okay, I want to bring in the next set of data. Let's bring that in through April actuals, hit okay, and then refresh all the sheets in the report. And what it's doing right now is it's going through all the tabs at the bottom, and it's changing out all the data associated with April and moving it to March. So you see now we have April and the prior 5 months, so these 6 months ending April, and everything along here has now been changed to April. And it was as simple as doing that. We don't have to go, we don't have to find that same piece of data across 10 different tabs and change it 10 different times with a number that's changed at the last minute. We can just go ahead, simply go and refresh the report. All right, well, that wraps it up today. I'm actually 2 minutes early according to my clock, and I think I started a minute and a half late. Again, I want to remind everyone, we certainly would appreciate you taking a few minutes with us just to chat, 15 minutes and no more. We'd love to talk with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, there's a lot more to understand, see, and explore, so we'd love to have a chance to do that with you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Everyone now, take care, and thanks for joining.